everybody, I'm Cinnamon Cooney, your art Sherpa, and today I'm so excited to be bringing you a video all about blending. When you're beginning out in acrylic paint, one of the most frustrating things that you'll run into is your paint dries really quick and it's really challenging to blend. So this whole video is a beginner's introduction to the basic techniques and concepts that we use in blending acrylic paint. One of these 6 techniques I am sure is going to improve your experience at your own easel. So get your paint, get your brushes, come back. I'm going to show you how to blend better. So as we begin our art journey into having a better experience with blending, one thing I really want to assure you of is no matter how challenging blending acrylics has been for you in the past, one of these techniques will help you improve at what you're doing. So let's jump right into the basics of the right way and the wrong way to blend acrylic paint. Now, over here, I have quinacridone magenta, ultramarine blue, and titanium white. I picked these colors because they give me a very nice transition that I like very, very much for blending. So I'm going to get my brush wet. This is just a bright with a synthetic filament, and I'm going to load it with paint. On both sides, I'm going to start with the white, right? And I'm going to come here and I'm going to make a strip of color, right? It doesn't really seem like color. It's got a little bit of moisture into it because with heavy body paint, you'll need to add a small amount of water to help improve the flow so it will blend better. Now I'm going to wipe off my extra paint here on my paper towel, and I'm going to go ahead and grab some of my fabulous pink magenta and load it in. And I'm going to come right here and blend across the brush line. So I'm not going up and down, I'm going across. And you're going to see what that does is that gives me a nice subtle blend. As I press harder in the brush, putting out more pigment, we're getting a nice darker application. When I come in, I want to soften those edges. I press very softly, dragging across, and it blends on the canvas right there. I'm going to rinse out vigorously. Remember, vigorous wash out to get all that pigment out. Make sure I've got the excess off, and I'm going to go ahead and pull a little bit of that ultramarine, and I'll grab some white into that so it's a nice soft blue. This makes a real pretty blue. I just dipped in my water for like maybe one more drop of water just to improve the flow, right? And I'm going to come up here from the top with this darker color, coming down, right? And when I get here, I'm going to go across into the pink, and you can see me blending those two zones. I'm smoothing that out. You can go ahead and even sometimes get a half step if you're trying to make a transition from one area to the next to improve it. But what you have to remember is that once the paint is dry, it's not going to blend anymore, and you don't want to go against it. And here's what I'll show you what I mean. So say, and I'll do this quite quickly, but you know what I'm doing now. I'm going to load up a little bit of my white here and maybe some pink. Let's come here, coming up. We're going to make a little complicated sort of stripe blend, and then I'll show you what sometimes I see happening to students, right? So we're coming up here. Things are going well. You've got a color that you like. Cross, 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 cross. So you're smoothing all that out. You're happy, happy, happy. Then you're going to get some of your glue into your brush. And you come here and you've got your little distinctive little zone. Now, what will often happen, and I'm going to wipe my brush out, is people will not blend far enough down so it's like there's a zone of pink and there's a zone of blue. But the big one I see them make a mistake is they go like this in an attempt to blend. And you can see how that really ruins all chances that you might have of getting that gradation, right? And you can come back with more paint. It's just not going to get better no matter what you do. And then I'll see them come back up with the other color again, trying to get it. And it just doesn't give the blend you want. Now you can come here and, interestingly enough, on the edge of the brush at the seam, kind of repair that a little tiny bit. But as we demonstrated, working with the brush stroke gives you a better blend. Now, hopefully that's starting to spark those creative brain cells and getting you excited about it. Maybe you've already seen an area that you're struggling on the blend, where the paint is drying on you, or you're blending against the gradation. So I'm ready to show you the next thing you need to know about blending. Now, the next blending technique I want to show you is how to get a complex blend with multiple colors that might even be difficult to use because they're kind of contrasting colors. So they want to make some difficult transitions using a second brush. This is a 2-brush blending method. Okay. And we're going to do it on the horizontal, which is going to be like what you might have for a sunset or sunrise or any sort of sky background, just something soft and subtle and transitional. So out here I have Indian yellow, cad red, dioxazine purple, and titanium white. If you paint it a little bit, you know, sometimes these two have a little trouble making a transition. And if this one is in the mix, it's very challenging, but that really is essentially the color of a sunset. So let's look at how we get that done with a second brush. Now, there's 2 second brushes you can use. You can use a synthetic soft mop blending brush. This particular one I will put in the description down below, or you can use a goat, which is with natural hair. I prefer synthetic because I feel like it holds up to this technique a little bit better and against the acrylic paint longer, actually, just, you know, all the way around. So I'm going to load up my brush, drag off the extra. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of my white into this yellow so we can start with a nice light bottom on this beautiful sunset kind of sky technique that we're going to do. And I'm going to bring this up. It's very similar to what you might be familiar with from before. I'm going to go ahead and add a little of the red and yellow together. So that half-step mixing is very helpful. There we go. Coming up. Now, right now, what am I fighting? I'm going to fight that the paint, I'm rinsing out quite vigorously, is going to be drying on me. And if it dries, I won't be able to achieve the blend. You see how I took the purple and made a half-step mix into the cad red? Kind of pulling that in there. Pulling that up. And then might put a little white into my purple just to show its purple nature. So this is a pretty intense sunset, and we need to be moving quickly enough so that it stays dry. Now, here's a tip. If you have a micro mister, here's a tip. If you have a micro mister, you can lightly mist the canvas, very lightly, so that it doesn't dry on you before you're ready. I can even come in and get a little more red to pop the transition on my sunset a bit. And kind of see how we're doing, just popping that. Now I will mist a little, not a lot. And I'm going to take this soft, dry brush, and I'm very softly coming up from the bottom, going to soften this gradation using the brush. And you can see how this really gives you such a gorgeous sunset effect where the transitions are very soft. If you need to continue blending because you want it to be even softer, you would rinse out and drag off every bit of the extra water that you could, right? It's okay if it's a little bit moist, and continue to softly blend the areas together, making those transitions even more gradated. Look at that. You can take this just as far as you need to get an effect that you need and to create dramatic and powerful sunsets and skies. Remember, you want it definitely as dry as possible when you do that blend. So now you've got that beautiful, beautiful kind of sunset effect. In skies, though, we don't just have a top to bottom gradient that we deal with. We also have the sun we contend with, or the moon, and that gives us a radial gradient that we also have to be able to do. And that can be really challenging when you're a beginner. So let's look at how we can do a radial gradient. So let's talk about radial blends. Now, in painting, of course, you're probably familiar with the fact that skies have a gradated blend. They're either darker at the top and lighter at the bottom, or darker at the bottom and lighter at the top, but you expect a horizontal stepping like we practiced. But in painting, we also need to be able to do radial gradients. So that is for things like the moon, for the sun, for candlelight, for lamplight. And that's a really important art skill to have. So let me show you how, using the two brush method, you can get a really good radial blend that's soft and transitional and get you those cool glow effects that everybody's looking for. Now here I have Indian yellow, titanium white, phthalo blue, and dioxazine purple. So what I'm going to be doing is a type of nighttime blend that you might expect to see. I'm going to take my brush. I'm going to go ahead, dip it in water, drag off the extra, kind of load up some yellow into here and get some of my white, because we're going to start with this sort of glow that we might find possibly around a moon, or, you know, a street lamp or some other object like that. So you see me making these circular brush strokes, right? Now I'm going to rinse out. I'm going to rinse out. I'm going to get a little of my yellow and my white together that I had, and I'm going to come over to my blue and start working that half steeped blend. And we remember we've got to work pretty quickly because we can only blend what is still wet. So if you're having problems with that, what can we do? We can mist so the canvas doesn't dry on us before we get a chance to do what we're doing. Now I'm going to get a little more white into my blue because I'm trying to take this into a nighttime sky. And right now you're probably seeing what you might have seen on your canvas several times and felt frustrated about, which is a very yellow, green stripe, blue stripe kind of a thing. So it feels pretty hard to think, how am I going to take it from that to this dark night sky that I'm trying to do? And here I am adding this purple. If the paint's drying, I'm going to mist it. Coming around, making sure the outer corners have a nice darkness to them. So curling around, we've got those transitional effects that we're looking for. Nice amount of paint. And everything is wet enough to still get a blend on. So like before, you're going to take a dry, soft brush and very gently begin to blend out your edges. It's good to clean off often. And you may need one or two of your brushes to really be able to soften this. Now I'm going to come from the inside out. I can wet this brush, rinse it out, and dry it again, or I can have another dry brush, which I do, off to the side. And I'm going to come back the opposite way and soften this transition between these two zones. Getting up to where we might have placed a moon glowing gently into the sky. Isn't that just awesome how that glows? And again, you can just gently glow it into the sky using the two brush method. There we go. Let's take a look at that. So now we have a nice glowing transition that's taking our night sky out into a glow. And we don't have those hard lines that are so frustrating to us. Now I'm going to give you some more tips on how to do this with mediums so that it's easier too. So at this point, you're probably going, wow, this is like a real circus. I've got to keep my paint wet. I got to have misters. I'm using several brushes. Surely there has to be some other way to do this. And thankfully there is. There have been several mediums and products made to specifically slow down or open the drying time of acrylic paint. Terms that you're going to want to look for when you're looking for an acrylic that will dry slower are words like open, slow dry, and of course, retarder. So those are generally the product names. And when you see those, that's what they're referring to, is that the paint is drying slower. So over here, I have put some titanium white, quinacridone magenta, phthalo green, and Indian yellow. And I have here two retarders. I'm going to use this retarding medium, right? But this is what that would look like. You get them in jars or bottles. I'm going to just pour out this nice, wonderful stuff. And what this is going to do is this is going to slow down how fast my paint dries. But a word of warning. With a strict retarder, you have to be very careful of the ratio of mix. You cannot exceed the manufacturer's recommendations. So if they say only 20% of the mix of your paint to retarder, you have to keep it to that. Don't make it 50%. Don't glaze with it. I've got another product I'm going to show you in a minute that will do that. So here we go. And we're going to do a nice little kind of fun, interesting blend. I'm going to go ahead and put some of this into my brush a bit and work it into my white paint. And what you'll immediately notice is this will reduce the drag on your brush of the paint. So if I want to come right here and get right into that, right? Maybe work some of that in there. These will not dry as quickly, and I can always just come in here and begin to soften my transitions with a little less panic to my process. And that is always nice, isn't it? What you'll see with these, with a good one that works as intended, is that it will reduce the drag. That's the pull that the canvas and paint has on your brush, and gives you just a little bit more time. Look, it's still blending on here. I can even do the softer blend, and I'm not getting as much of a dry brush even. And that's what that does. So like if I rinse out, let me get some water here. Vigorous rinse out. And maybe I want to come into like this yellow. I can put a little bit of this into the Indian yellow. And I begin to work this right here. Right? And again, you'll see that I'm not having difficulty pulling against the brush. I can wipe out with my towel and begin just a regular soft blending process with just a single brush. Here, now you can still use the double brush method, and it is very effective still. You can layer these techniques, layer these effects, but what you're seeing is like you're already seeing, I'm not drying as fast as I did anywhere else on my surface. And I can blend all these little colors into all these little places where I want. Look at that. So still getting my blendability where I need it. Now I'll rinse out again. That edge will still be blendable. So I'm going to take a little of my yellow and some of my green together. I'll go ahead and add some of that slow drying agent to this. There we go, just covering the surface, but not having to fight the drag, not having to fight the challenges. Some products do not work as well as I would like in this category of mediums. Some products just actually make it more tacky and more sticky. So I will include a list of products that I've worked with that I thought were pretty good in the information. All right. You can see that that just gives me a minute and a half to think about how I'm going to blend stuff. I can still come here and have no trouble blending between these two colors, even though I have air blowing directly on my surface right now from my air conditioning unit. Hopefully that was surprisingly effective and started making you feel a little excited about it. At least there's some products out there that will help you out with that dry time. If you're living in very arid, dry regions, I think having one of these products, or the product I'm about to show you, is absolutely necessary, essential to your painting experience. Now I'm going to show you my very favorite product for blending paint in the world next, and also another way of doing it. All right, I'm going to show you my very favorite product for blending paint. This particular product is only made by this company in the formulation that I'm going to show you. So I think you're really going to like it, and you'll be surprised at what it can do. So right here, I have Golden Artist Colors Acrylic Glazing Liquid. Now I'm going to show you how glazing can allow you to also blend paint. But on top of that, this slows down, it extends the working time of your acrylic paints, but it does it without the worry of having the wrong mixture ruining your paintings. It's a really fantastic product. It's like no mistakes, no fault, no worry. It's just amazing like that. And first I'm going to start out, I'm going to get my brush. I've got a big, nice, chunky round brush. I'm going to get it just loaded up with some of this. And I'm going to grab my yellow ochre. I have phthalo green, phthalo blue, yellow ochre, burnt sienna. Sorry, guys. And I'm going to just start putting this out, you know, on my surface. There we go. Just putting that out, putting that out. Just different colors. That I can put out. You can see I was very, very, very heavy with that product. And I'm not worried about it in any way. Now, I can soften all of this blending, again, with a soft brush. I'll grab, this is a goat hair mop, is another way of blending. And I'll just soften all of this so that it is a nice transition. You can see it works together very easily. So you can do the 2-brush blending method, but this will dry with your hair dryer. And then I'll show you how cool it is that you can glaze over it as another method of blending using the same product with no penalty. So let's dry it and then meet back. So on top of slowing down the drying time, and it will take you longer using a hair dryer to get it to completely dry. The other one is still drying. So these products do make that drying time more open, take longer. But with the glazing, you can easily just dry it down with a hair dryer. Cut that down a lot. I've got another brush here that's clean. I'm going to load it with more of the glazing medium. I put out titanium white so you can see how even with an opaque color, right, and titanium white is notoriously opaque, I can use this to create blends, look at that, using the glazing method. So this is the one that isn't working the paint wet into wet. It's using transparent little transitions of color, kind of like looking through cellophane. If you've ever noticed that. Now, one thing I love to do is take my phthalo blue and phthalo green and mix them together to create a turquoise. And you really see it when you put the white into it. But I can get a glaze going of it using my glazing medium. And if I want to soften that transition, I just grab more glazing medium, and look at that. I can soften it easily. blending out across this surface from pretty opaque color to pretty transparent color. Just go over it as I want to. Making all these effects. This is really fantastic for aging things, for making patinas, like rust, all of those things. And you can see it does. It just lets you work transparent glazes to get your effect. I'll go into a green here. Getting a lot more glazing medium on there, and you can see I'm going over green. And I can still blend them together in the soft blending method on the canvas directly, but the glaze will work and work and work. And it lets the paint, that's why if you see how far the paint's going on my brush, that's why this is also referred to as an extender. If I get the yellow ochre and just load it in there. Changing that all over in every conceivable way. Rinse out. And there's just no end to how far the glazing can go. You can glaze and glaze and glaze over itself, making little mellow transitions, little blends. And it's just one of those other ways to get those effects that we're always looking for in acrylic paint. So hopefully that product was kind of exciting to see. I really love it a lot. It's really great to use for things like mist, for atmosphere, for clouds, for glass, for skin tones, just any place where thin application of just a hint of color that can make all the difference in your painting. Now, it wouldn't be us unless I had something fun to show you. So the next blending method is really, really fun to do. Now, the last blending method, which I think is the most fun, is a little bit messy. So this is one that's only okay if you're comfortable getting your hands a little bit dirty. But remember, acrylic paint washes right off. So as long as you're comfortable with it, I think it's a great way to go. It's using a sponge to blend. And let me show you how that works. So I have here this little round sponge that comes in craft packs. It's a little bit wet. I've got a bowl of water. I'm going to wring out every drop of water that doesn't have to be in the sponge. So it's damp, but not any drips or drops. I'm going to come into my yellow and you're going to see me swirl around. That's how I load that sponge. And I'm going to come here making circular motions, just going all over the canvas. Circular motions. Anywhere I got a little bit of paint that wanted to stick there, that's fine. I don't care. You can always clear anything off your surface that you want to. But you can. Okay. Happens to everybody. So, like, say if I wanted to put some green into there, then I would come into this green and I could come in from the bottom. Right into there. It's easy to work the paint into where you need it. You can always move the sponge over to the clean side to blend. Pressure is generally soft, but you can see it gives you some really cool effects. You can always get a little more paint onto it. And I just like to blend super softly. So I just make soft circles. I don't press in. Just keep it mellow. I can always flip over and come back with some yellow the other way. You can see you can just work it into itself and work it into itself. Just softly making little circles. Now, if you need to change colors, you can rinse out and squeeze out any of the extra water. Sometimes I like to even go so far as to use a paper towel to press out that extra water. I want it, again, damp, but not enough water to be lifting or messing with the paint. So if I say wanted a little bit of a brown and green mixture, a little more hunter's green, like maybe up here in the corner, it would be real easy for me then to add that transition in and glaze over that. So a lot of my beginner videos use this sponging method to blend because it can be a lot beginner friendly without a medium. It's only an issue there. Normally I would just move the canvas to get better access to that. So you can see how I can blend and blend and blend. I'll switch over to the other side, softening, 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 creating this amazing background effect. It's just like the action of buffing. And then when you're all done, it's really surprising how gorgeous it is. And then all you've got to do is wash out your sponge. Now, I don't know which one today would have been your favorite blending method. I think for me, the fun, messy one is always going to be my favorite, but I really love each of these for what they do. I hope this video helps your own art adventure go smoother. Be good to yourself, be good to each other, and I want to see you at an easel really soon. Bye-bye!